Mabuhay, or in Kapampangan Luwid kayo. Today we are going to talk about the Filipino American Manongs. Who were the Manongs and why should we even remember them? At number 1, the term Manong comes from the Ilocano or the Ilocano language, and it simply means older brother. But in the Philippines, the term Manong is used as a term of endearment and to show respect for your elders. And the female equivalent of a Manong would be a Mana. And here in the United States, the Manong generation is considered to be the first wave of Filipino Americans. Although the Manongs were not the first people from what is now the Philippines to arrive and settle in what would become the United States, the Manongs were indeed the pioneers of our present-day Filipino American community. At number 2, the Manongs started arriving here in the United States in the beginning of the 20th century, after the bloody Philippine American War that devastated their homeland, the Philippines. It was a brutal war and genocide that did not only kill thousands if not millions of their people, but also ruined their economy and their source of living. The Manong were also mostly able-bodied younger men who were specifically targeted for their work ethic and for being a cheap source of manual labor. They were encouraged and lured in by the Americans with promises of prosperity and a better life. Many of them were eager to come to the United States to make a living and to support their families back home. They had hopes of returning back to the motherland with the wealth and the promises of the American dream. However, life here in the United States turned out to be extremely difficult. Number 3. The Manongs back then settled mainly in the present-day states of Hawaii, Alaska, Washington, and of course, California. They worked in the fish canneries of Alaska, in the sugar plantations of Hawaii, and the agricultural fields of California and Washington. They were picking grapes, asparagus, lettuce, and many other fruits and vegetables. And they endured hardships in some of the harshest working and living conditions one could possibly imagine. Many of them stayed in labor camps, while some settled and started their own communities, such as what is now the historic Little Manila in Stockton, California. At number 4, their life was hard, but they still managed to be optimistic and have fun whenever possible. They knew how to work hard and they dressed up really well, and they were even popular with the ladies of the time. However, racist laws and intolerance from the dominant white American community subjected the Manongs to even further discrimination. And because migration of Filipino women were strictly limited, the ratio of Filipino American women to men was 1 to 20, or in some cases 1 to 40. So it was no surprise that our Manongs would get lonely and would long for some romance. But their relationships with American women were also targeted by racist anti-miscegenation laws that prevented them from starting their own families. Racial discrimination that robbed them of the opportunities of having their own children to carry their names and continue their legacies. And during the Great Depression, white Americans targeted the Manong and blamed them for taking their jobs and stealing their women. Sounds familiar? And this racial intolerance led to violence, such as the historic Watsonville riots of California in 1930. For the same racist reasons, many communities and establishments had signs that read positively, "No Filipinos allowed." Some even threatened to burn down an entire town if Filipinos were allowed in, and sometimes the Manong were even compared to savage dogs. And at number 5, despite all the hardships, despite all the struggles, and despite all the discrimination and violence, the Manongs and Manangs of their generation prevailed. They found strength, and along with their incredible resilience, they persevered and even made a huge impact in the United States. It was, after all, Filipino American Manongs who first went on strike in Coachella Valley, California, and eventually started the historic Delano grape strike of the 1960s. A strike that would later grow into the United Farm Workers Movement, one of the most epic labor and civil rights movements in the history of the United States. It was a movement that crossed racial boundaries, built solidarities, and rallied millions of people, not just in North America, but also around the world. And during this movement, the Manongs have fought for what we would now call as social and economic justice, issues that are still relevant to workers and communities of color today. So why should we honor the Manongs and how can we honor them? The Manongs may or may not be our blood relatives, but they are our forefathers who planted the roots of our people, of our community here in the United States. They paved the way for us, especially for those who benefit from the opportunities that this country may provide. We can honor the Manongs by continuing their legacy of standing up for equality and justice, and for continuing the fight for our rights and our freedom to live and be treated as humans in this land of the free. They fought for the future generations of Filipino Americans, our generation today and those who will come after us. They built solidarity with other communities, and they taught us that in solidarity, when one rises, we all rise, and that we are only as strong as our weakest link. Let us remember the Manongs by following their example of selflessness, of sharing, of courage and resilience, and in taking an active role in shaping a brighter future for our people. And I guess that is it for me today. To learn more about the Manongs and Filipino American history, check out the links in the video description below, or you can also watch these videos up here. And until next time, bye! Kita kits! Oing Kamampangan, Mikitix!